Hi guys, I'm Kristen. Welcome and welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing the end of the year book tag, and this is a great small, very brief tag to do at this time of the year to help you kind of look forward into the next final onslaught of the year and figure out what are your priorities, what do you want to get done. So let's just jump right into it. I'll leave all the questions in the description box down below if you would like to do this tag video. And if you just want to answer some or one of the questions, you can also do that down below. I'd love to hear your answers. The first question is, are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? And yes, I have 2 books that I have started that I consider a bit of a priority. They're actually technically priorities for the year. First of which being The Grace of Kings. I started this earlier this year. It is one of my priority series starts for the year. It wasn't right in the moment, or at least the format that I had wasn't right in the moment. So this is a book that I would really, really like to pick up again and try to finish before the end of this year. The other book is one that I am currently reading right now, and that is Legacy of the Brightwash by Crystal Matar or Matter. I'm not sure, so I apologize. So the reason that I'm not just able to read this all the way through is that I have the physical copy and I'm actually trying to read it physically, which is a little bit limiting for me in terms of time and space that I have to do that. I am about this far into the book, so I do think that I can do this. It's just a matter of hitting that 1 chapter a night before bed. I have taken a bit of time off of it, but I'm getting back into it now. So definitely would like to finish this and The Grace of Kings before the end of the year. The second question is, do you have an autumnal book to help you transition into this time of the year? Short answer, no, not really. I don't really read all that seasonally consistently, let's say. Last year I tried to. This year my TBR is a much looser entity, I guess, where I am just really reading whatever it is that I have available to me right now. And so I don't happen to have any autumnal books that are available to me in this moment, and it's not a priority for me to do so. But I'm going to give you an answer that helps to actually include a book, and that would be The Land of the Living and the Dead by Shauna Lawless, and also Dreams of Sorrow. Both are books within the Gale Song series. The Land of the Living and the Dead is the 3rd and final book in this trilogy, where it came out sometime in September. It came out mid or towards the latter half of September. I'm on a long hold for that one, so I don't actually anticipate reading this in fall. For whatever reason, I feel like historical fantasy works really well in the fall, and this is a series set 100 AD in Ireland, and it follows 2 female POVs that have mythical origins, and we're following them in the times of these warring Irish and Viking kings within Ireland. It's very historical, but also very magical as well, and I just feel like it is a really, really great fall series. Question number 3, is there a new release that you're still waiting for? I have stopped doing my monthly plans where I was including each month the new releases that I was had my eye on for that month. So I'm gonna let you know just my October new releases. I don't actually really have anything listed down for November or December. I'm sure there are some. So the first of which, coming out on the 15th of October, is On Vicious Worlds, I believe, by Bethany Jacobs. And this is the 2nd book in the series of name I'm not remembering, but it is the sequel to These Burning Stars, which is a sci-fi cat and mouse chase story that I read earlier this year. Really, really enjoyed it. It is this long 20-year cat and mouse chase amongst planets. It's a little bit revenge, but not really. And it just had some really crazy reveals. It took us to a really interesting place at the end. The characters in this series are so interesting. I cannot wait to see what the author does in the sequel. Bloodguard comes out on the 22nd of October. This is a book that was supposed to come out way earlier this year. I think the date has been moved a couple times, so I did check. It does still say October on Goodreads, so fingers crossed that actually happens. Bloodguard is a gladiator tournament style setup, which is something that I actually do really like if it is done to my particular taste, I guess. But this is a main character whose sister's dying, and he enters a gladiator type thing to win some sort of prize that helps him get his sister back or something. And then of course enter a princess who gives him a sweet deal, whatever. That's the setup. The term romantasy is being used in the marketing material, but that word is really being thrown around willy-nilly. I will say that it does read romance-y in the synopsis, but anyway, it is coming out in October. Pretty sure it's finally happening this time, and I would really like to check it out. And I have kind of been waiting for it like all year, so excited to finally see it. Also on the 22nd is Monstrous Nights. This is the second book and finishing book in the Witch's Compendium. I think it's a longer title than that. Witch's Compendium to Monsters or something like that. So this is a sequel to Foul Days, which I read and reviewed earlier this year. You can check that out. It is like Eastern European inspired monsters in a closed walled city that have like where the veil between worlds is thinner at a particular time of year, and that is like the setup for the first book, where our main character has to team up with like a copper, and this is the follow-up and conclusion to the duology. I'm really looking forward to picking that one up as well. And then finally we have The Republic of Salt, and this is another sequel. I don't know if this is a trilogy or a duology. I would assume trilogy just based on statistics. But anyway, this is a sequel to The Pomegranate Gate, which I just finished recently. You can hear more about it, like how I actually thought about it, in my September wrap up. I have mixed feelings about this one, to say the least, but the ending left me in a very intrigued position because it made some actually really interesting and dramatic choices that totally caught me. So I am curious to read The Republic of Salt. I don't think I'll pick it up anytime soon, but it is coming out in October. Question number 4 is 3 books that you would like to read before the end of the year. The housekeeping in my building is vacuuming the hallway. I hope that you can't hear it. No, they just came my door, so we're just gonna ride through this for a minute. Okay, 3 books that of course I have not already mentioned. So I'm gonna go with Blood Upon the Sands. This is the second book in the Shattered Sands series, which was the 12 Kings in Cherkai that I started earlier this year. Really, really liked it. Almost like I wanted to pick up the second book in the moment, didn't. Don't know why, you know how it is, but that is something that that's a series that I think, you know what, I really, really would like to continue on in that series before the end of this year. 12 Kings in Cherkai is a little bit like revisionist history. It is a desert fantasy where we are following a main character who lives in a city that is ruled by these like immortal 12 kings who do whatever they want. On a religious night when everyone is supposed to stay in because there's like a little bit of like a culling situation that goes on, she is out for reasons and witnesses something that makes her start questioning the history that they have been told. Another book here would be The Traitor of Baru Cormorant, something like that. It's been on my list for a really long time. Every now and then people mention it. I'm like, oh yes, I do really want to read that. More recently, it was Jimmy from the Fantasy Network who put this back on my radar. The reason that I have it on this list is because my library just cut back the amount of holds that you're allowed to have from 30 to 15. So in all of that mess, The Traitor of Baru Cormorant had just become available. Normally I would have postponed it, but I didn't. In order to not go back on a huge wait list for it and also to like make some space, I took it out. So I have 3 weeks to read this book. I need to do it so that I can actually read it and not have to like forget about it all over again. And this is a one where it is like an empire type situation where our main character's like country or town or whatever is consumed by the expanding empire, and they decide to take down the empire from the inside, a la many. However, they do so economically, like financially, and I've heard it is intense and like disturbing, and I don't know, I really love revenge stories, and this is a really interesting take on that. And then the third one here, I'm gonna go with The Undermining of Twyla and Frank, or Frank and Twyla, something like that, by Megan Brannon. This is the second book in the world that was the same as Heart and Mercy, which was like this crazy fantasy book that came out a couple years ago. Very different world building that kind of had a lot of potential, but expectations were a little bit off. So I know what the world situation is like. I know what the writing, the description is going to be like in this one. So I have higher hopes going into this version, and we are following Frank and Twyla. I imagine it'll be dual POV, and I think they're like neighbors and longtime friends who become partners as part of this like ranger system, and it is their romance. I think they like find a dragon in a world where there's not, like in a place where there's not supposed to be dragons, something like that. But it's like a friends to lovers romance in like a campy, quirky world. And this is I have not talked about my priority list in a while. It is on my priority list, but it's one of my like remaining priorities that I want to really, really make sure that I get to before the end of the year. Not that I don't want to get to them all, but like I'm highlighting this one as being like, yes, this one is important. If we had to make cuts, if I didn't get to everything, this one. Question number 5, is there a book that you think could still shock you to become a favorite for the year? Now this one causes a lot of confusion about like shock, and if it's going to be shock you, why would you anticipate it being a favorite? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with, I don't remember, is it When a Sorceress Comes to Call or just A Sorceress Comes to Call, the new Kingfisher book that just came out. Everybody has been absolutely loving this. And so I'm going to say that it could be a shock because typically I tend to like, not love Kingfisher books. However, everybody's been really enjoying this one. I am partial to a good Goose Girl retelling, which this book is. And we're following a main character whose mother is a sorceress who like is obviously abusive, and the mom moves them into this mansion to try to like woo an older rich man essentially. And then I think we were also getting the rich man's sister who is, you know, suspicious about this lady. So I think that that one would be a shock if it became a favorite, but I think it has the potential to, as I do really like Kingfisher books. I just don't normally love them, but again, hearing good things. Another book that I think similarly would fall into this category would be The Silver Blood Promise. And this is a new release that I feel like I only hear good things about, but I don't hear everybody talking about it. It kind of feels like The Will of the Many from last year, where it's like certain channels were like, whoa, this is a perfect, great book, but like it's not like super, super, super mainstream yet. And you know what? I had The Will of the Many pretty high up on my list last year. So The Silver Blood Promise is following a character who I think he like drops out of school. He like doesn't do all of the things that his father wants him to do. I think he's like, you know, a little bit of a like lays about, a gambler kind of a situation. And then his father dies or is killed, and he has to like gather himself up to try to find out what happened to his dad. I think that there's like a really great companion that everybody raves about. I don't know much, but everyone just like only says good things about this book. So again, I think that that would be a shock, because it's not necessarily one that I would normally like gravitate and read this for sure. But then just the praise is so high that it makes me a little bit curious. We'll see. So those are my answers for question number 5 this year. And then question number 6 to wrap this up. Are you already making plans for like reading plans specifically? Are you already started your reading plans for next year? Yes, sort of. I'm not like the biggest planner in terms of reader. I'm not even the biggest planner like content-wise. But I do have some thoughts about next year in terms of what are the things that I'm going to prioritize and focus on. This year I have really enjoyed having my like 24 list, so I'm probably going to repeat that next year. I haven't started making that list, but I have acknowledged that I would like to do that again because I think that it really worked for me this year. In terms of like overall priorities as like a concept, I would really like to focus on continuing series next year in terms, rather than trying to read every book that I have on my TBR that catches my fancy. I'm actually like intentionally going to try to continue to read books in series that I am really enjoying, and not for the sake of like checking them off and finishing them, but because I like those books. I want to read more by that author, and I don't want to be like swayed by every new thing that catches my eye. So I am going to make like a series Excel kind of document that I actually don't really do. So it's just going to take me some work to like figure out what series do I have on the go, and make a little bit of a priority list from there, as well as figuring out what I need to put on hold, how I need to get access to these books, etc. I do have an ongoing list of the new releases that I would like to be aware of coming out. So that's something that really worked for me as well this year, was having like a document where I kept track of new releases that I heard about as I heard about them, and not like every new release that was interesting to me, but like the ones that I really thought I would like to read. So it never was more than 5 or even 4 a month. So I have already started that document for next year. This year I did have trouble getting access to a lot of new releases with my library, and then obviously they made this like huge cut to the amount of books that I can request on hold, which does really make a significant difference to like having things always readily available. So I am maybe gonna zhuzh up my NetGalley account again. I don't wanna request like a million things. I don't wanna get overwhelmed by NetGalley, but I would like to just put a little bit of work into that so that I could potentially still read some new releases that don't come through my library for next year. So those are like my plans. They're not crazy, more just like focusing on how am I going to get books, what books am I going to, what type of books am I going to look towards next year. And there we have it. That is the end of the year book tag. Things to think about going into the end of this year, which, yes, it is October. We are already in that like final wind down period leading into, gasp, Christmas. But you know what? The one day becomes the next and the year turns over and it's not that big a deal, folks. So if you don't finish a book before the end of 2024, it will be okay. If you have a channel and you're gonna do this video, let me know down below. If you don't and you wanna answer any or all of the questions, I would really love to hear about it in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps the channel out, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day, bye.